From M&T Bank Stadium, it is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer live on a Sunday in October to break down another loss, another home loss for the Baltimore Ravens as they fall to 1-5 after a 17-3 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to break this down from every angle, talk about where the Ravens stand as they head into the bye and what this team could look like on the other side. All that and much, much more. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. All right, Jonas, we are going to break down this game, this 17-3 loss to the LA Rams. Thank you so much. If you're tuning in anywhere on X, Facebook, or YouTube, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, comment along, and I will try to get to some of those. You could be listening to us after the fact on any of your favorite podcast platforms, in which case, write us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and I will read it out here on the show. Jonas, I can't imagine there are all that many fans who are interested in the postmortem after this one, but we're going to deliver it nonetheless. It didn't seem like there was that much interest in this game coming into it regardless, because the Ravens came in at 1-4. We were driving in, not a whole lot of traffic.
Smooth shot.
Not a whole lot of fans in the stands for this one, not the usual crowd that we're used to seeing. And the Ravens deliver a clunker with Cooper Rush under center. They fall to 1-5. They're now headed into the bye, and there are so many question marks after this one, Jonas. It feels like if this team isn't doing one thing wrong, they're doing something else wrong. The defense has been the main issue this entire season. I thought the defense played pretty well today. It was the offense today that was absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, I think probably the most unsatisfying thing about it narratively is that if this Ravens defense had kept chugging along at the dismal rate that they were, then we could have sat here and said the Ravens need to do this one thing, which is change up the defensive staff. And we still might be of that opinion, but the way that they played today, holding this Rams offense, which again was missing Puka Nacua for much of that game, to under 5 yards per play. I think for the first time this year, the Rams came in today number one in DVOA in offense, I believe, and the Rams didn't really have a whole lot of answers for the Ravens. Their two touchdown drives, happened in pretty quick succession, but one of those was on a short field because of the Ravens' own self-inflicted wounds. Matt Stafford was fine. The Ravens' pass rush didn't really do a whole lot, but they were able to hold up against this very efficient on a down-and-down basis run offense, which we thought would give them all kinds of trouble. John Jenkins had a nice game. The Ravens, despite only having 4 defensive linemen and losing Tavius Robinson early in this game, did a pretty good job on early downs, but they just continually undercut themselves with what they were able to do on offense or weren't able to do on offense. Cooper Rush wasn't any good. Tyler Huntley was okay. But man, does this team need this bye in the worst way possible?
Yeah, and the elephant in the room, you mentioned defensive staff changes. So, everybody has kind of been circling the bye week as the time when the Ravens would make coaching changes, and most notably, probably firing defensive coordinator Zach Orr. We've talked about before why we don't think John Harbaugh is somebody who could be fired or will be fired over the course of the season because he has built a reputation for himself, and he's been here 17 years, and that's just not the kind of guy, and a Super Bowl champion, that's just not the kind of guy that you fire in the middle of the season. He has earned the grace and the right to finish out the season, but everybody's been looking at this and saying, Ravens defense was not good for most of the year last year. They were on pace to be the first defense ever to allow 600 points in a season, and then they actually come out here today and play pretty well. The first half was pretty solid football on the defensive side. They had a lot of their key players back, and that's part of it. Marlon Humphrey was playing in this game. Kyle Hamilton was playing in this game. They got Alohi Gilman in there at safety. That allowed Kyle Hamilton to be closer to the line of scrimmage, kind of the linebacker of that defense, while Roquan Smith is out. So that was certainly helpful. but they're still without some of their key players like Roquan and Namdi, and they held this high-powered Rams offense to 3 points in the first half. And Matthew Stafford committed a fumble. John Jenkins came up the middle, all 36 years old, and
330 pounds of him,
and
whatever.
Knocked the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands and rumbled for 9 yards. And this defense was actually bowing up. It looked like they were playing with a little bit more fire than they had in recent weeks. But Cooper Rush's offense just gave them absolutely nothing. And now you look at the entire coaching staff, you look at Todd Monken, you look at everything as a whole, and you say this team is it's not well coached. They don't have a plan, and they are just not playing good football right now. And that's why our word of the day, Jonas, is hapless, meaning having no luck. John Harbaugh talked about this week, we feel like the luck is going to turn for us. He said, quote, hopefully the odds will come out our way a little bit. We have to think it's going to turn. You have to think we'll start getting some interceptions or some crazy plays, some tip balls for touchdowns, and all those different kinds of things that will happen, end quote. You have to create your own luck. The Ravens definitely got a little bit more lucky in the first half of this game. Matthew Stafford missed some throws. That strip sack fumble turnovers are a little bit wonky, so you get some luck on that side. It was a game at halftime, but the Ravens didn't create their own luck, and they haven't all season.
Yeah, I mean, if this were last year's Ravens team in the same kinds of down and distances that they found themselves when they were in Rams territory, I think you could reasonably argue that, and if you want to give a little bit of credit for the Rams' own special teams shortcomings, like the Ravens probably, with the right bounces of the ball and the right calls from their coordinator on offense, probably go into halftime up 13-6. They score a touchdown on that terrible push addled goal line stand.
Ugh.
They get a field goal on the drive that ends around the 32 or the 33 yard line. They go with the Justice Hill inside zone run or stretch run on 3rd and 2 that goes nowhere. They keep their offense on the field despite it being 4th and 3, and with it potentially being within Tyler Loop's range. You never really know how these coaches calibrate their expectations for these kickers on a day when the wind is stiff enough to knock the ball off the actual kicking tee. But that 4th and 3 was also a disaster. They didn't come close to completing that, I think, on the flag route to Zay Flowers or whatever it was. So that's 10 points off the board there. And, it was encouraging, I guess, that they were that it was tied at halftime, considering the line was 7.5 points. We both thought that, and that was pretty low. But then you realize, oh yeah, the Rams are getting the ball to start the second half. Sean McVay is the one calling up plays. Matthew Stafford has the 15 minutes to look at his iPad and figure out what exactly this Ravens defense is doing. And he just realized, oh yeah, there's no pass rush. I can just make a living taking 7 to 8 yards down the middle every single time. And when they actually got into the goal line scenario where they had an opportunity to kind of prove that they were the tougher team, they again did that Kyrie Williams touchdown to break the deadlock and put them up 10-3. He wasn't even touched.
Yeah.
And it just really makes you wonder what exactly is going to be the cure for this Ravens offense that was just lights out in the red zone last year. Because even when Lamar was in here, as we saw in that in that Detroit game, 3 weeks ago at this point, they had problems there too.
I mean, they did. They still scored 40 points in week 1 at the Bills. They still lit up the Browns late in the game in week 2. They still were. It was a tie game at halftime in that Detroit Lions game. They scored at times. They had a first quarter lead against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you do wonder if this Ravens team, I mean, certainly they would have made it more competitive. Would they have pulled out the win against the Rams if Lamar Jackson were in there at quarterback?
Probably.
I mean, you think that he would be able to score more than 17 points in this game. So it's just tough timing to have Cooper Rush in there. Cooper Rush eventually benched in this game, by the way, in the 4th quarter for Tyler Huntley. And Tyler Huntley at least gave them something on the ground. Wasn't able to put up any points, but at least he plays a more similar style quarterback. I mean, I was happy when this team signed Cooper Rush in the offseason because this team, I've said before, I think chronically undervalues the backup quarterback position. They throw, 6th round picks at it. They throw 39-year-old veterans at the backup quarterback spot, and sometimes it comes back to bite them. When Lamar's healthy, it doesn't. But they invested money. They invested a 2-year contract that can go up to $12 million for a backup quarterback in Cooper Rush. they picked the wrong guy. I mean, I think it's safe to say. I mean, he is. I give him credit because he is consistently going in there and saying the right things and doing the right things, and it seems like his teammates certainly like him and the coaches love him, but he just is not getting it done. And this team tells you what it thinks of Tyler Huntley over and over again when they have let him hit free agency, when they've let him walk, and they only bring him back in emergency situations or on the practice squad or as a QB3. And that's what he was this season. He was a practice squad elevation for this game. And he still gave them more in 2 drives in the fourth quarter than Cooper Rush did all day. I don't know if this team failed to account for the different style of quarterback that Cooper Rush is, and they just thought, oh, he'll be fine. He's a veteran and he'll just step in and be okay. Or if they just misevaluated Cooper Rush. But he is clearly no better in the backup quarterback role than Tyler Huntley was before in years past, than even maybe Josh Johnson was the last couple of years.
Yeah, you look at these last 2 weeks, maybe the only 2 starts of Cooper Rush's Ravens career, because he is signed for a 2-year deal, but you can certainly get out from that relatively easily. Against the Texans last week, minus 0.3 EPA per play. It's terrible. That's like worse than Joe Flacco as a starter this year. And then today, minus 0.57 EPA per play. And I think you obviously have the fumble in there that's baked into that, along with just his general inefficiency. But I think for me, like if I'm choosing a breaking point, it is what I think was an early down pass to Zay Flowers, who's running an outbreaker, and he just completely skies it coming to the direction of the press box that we're situated in. Like, and as soon as he released it, you could hear just a guttural sound from the crowd. Like, they knew it as soon as that ball flew off his fingertips that there was no chance that Zay Flowers, who was open by a couple steps, was catching this one. And the irony of that was chef's kiss, because I think the guy, the big wig along the Ravens sideline who was closest to see that play unfold in its totality was Eric DaCosta, unless there was a doppelganger with, a nice jacket and suit and bald head along that sideline. But I believe that was Eric DaCosta. And not long after that, it's Tyler Huntley getting the start, or getting the nod for Cooper Rush. But just the accuracy today was pretty appalling. Completion percentage over expected. The models, which is just accounting for down and distance and where receivers are and where he is, said that there should have been a 67% accuracy day for Cooper Rush. It was 57.9, so almost 10 points below what it should have been. His expected QBR 11.2. So basically, you could expect a quarterback with that kind of performance to win 11% of his games in the NFL, which honestly feels a little bit high. It just, there were points last week against Houston where you could talk yourself into Cooper getting into a bit of a rhythm, but all the Ravens' best drives in this one were, let's feed Derrick Henry the ball on a stretch play. Let's see what Justice Hill could do. There was none of the accuracy that he showed at times last year against a ostensibly superior Texans secondary. That just Ravens either couldn't get open for him, or he couldn't find them, or whatever. And John Harbaugh told us post game that he expects Lamar back against Chicago. And let's all hope so, because I'm sick of watching my redheaded brethren embarrass ourselves like this.
Yeah, I mean, the only offense that the Ravens had today came from the ground. And it was clear Todd Monken came into this saying, we're not going to be dissuaded from using Derrick Henry and Justice Hill early in this game. They ran the ball on their first 5 plays in this game and got 3 first downs. It felt like we were watching some of the old Titans teams with Derrick Henry when there was no passing game to speak of whatsoever, but they were feeding Derrick Henry. And if there's anybody who can take on that kind of workload, it's Derrick Henry, even at 31 years old. 24 carries in this game for 122 yards. He averaged 5.1 yards per carry in this game. He was phenomenal. And the rushing offense was really the only thing going for them on offense. Cooper Rush finishes 11 for 19 for just 72 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. At least he wasn't sacked in this game. But
he did fumble the ball. Well, he was charged with the fumble.
Charged with the fumble. True. And we'll get to Zay Flowers in a little bit, but we do have to talk about that awful goal line performance. This has been a problem for the Ravens all season, even with Lamar Jackson in there. They get inside the 10-yard line and they can't punch the ball in. Is it an offensive line problem? Are they just not making the holes? I know you don't have Lamar Jackson in there, but as I said, they've struggled even with him in there, he's the best running quarterback in NFL history. You have Derek freaking Henry back there. Patrick Ricard's absence is certainly felt, but how do you not punch the ball in? And you have 2 tush pushes with Mark Andrews from the 1-yard line that go nowhere.
It's all pretty shocking because last year, like you said, Lamar was not really, he had to be accounted for, but when the Ravens got to the 3-yard line and closer last year, it wasn't like Lamar was lining up in the shotgun pretending to the defense like he was going to do his own read. Like, it was Derrick Henry straight ahead down Route 1. We're daring you to stop it. And guess what? Teams did not. Just looking at Pro Football Reference, last year the Ravens had 15 plays from the 3-yard line and closer, basically goal line range. They got a first down on 10 of them, or like a first down or touchdown on 10 of them. This year, it's been a much smaller sample size, but I think they are so far coming into today 1 for 4. And obviously, they are now having to resort to tush pushes, which are not even working, which I think serves to explain just the bigger problems at stake here, that they don't trust Derrick Henry to be able to work up enough steam as he's approaching the line of scrimmage to be able to burrow ahead. And I guess it's like such is the situation for the Ravens that, like, you could, I think, reasonably argue that the Ravens were probably better off testing their luck a third time with the tush push than resorting to Derrick Henry as the break glass in case of emergency option on 4th down, because at least with the tush push, you stagnated. With Derrick Henry, seems like more often than not, on these goal line situations, you are losing yardage.
Is it the guards? Because those two obviously have been the weak spot this year. Andrew Voorhees at left guard, Daniel Falele at right guard. Typically, when you're tush pushing, you're relying a lot on the center and those 2 guards. And when you're running down inside the 5, you're typically running right between the A gap. Is that an issue that falls on the shoulders of Falele and Voorhees, who, by the way, after John Harbaugh had said last week that every starting spot would be considered for replacements, those 2 guys started this game once again?
Yeah, there was, I think I saw on Twitter a video of Falele just falling on the Derrick Henry, stuff on 4th down. So that is a problem that I think every high school coach in America would tell you. Like, if your offensive lineman or defensive lineman finds himself constantly on the ground, then they're probably not the kind of guy you want to be playing 40, 50% of the snaps at least. And obviously Falele is an every down contributor for this Ravens team. So, just looking at last year, they spread the wealth pretty evenly in terms of like where they ran the ball. There was left tackle, left end, right guard, right tackle. So that was, I think, keeping teams off balance. Obviously, we should mention that the Ravens lost Ronnie Stanley pretty early in this one to the ankle injury. Didn't see what happened. I think it looked like it was just a pretty standard bull rush from Jared Verse, and then Ronnie's limping out, and Joe Noteboom's coming back in, and obviously the passing offense probably took a little bit of a hit after that one. But
yeah, and that's an injury that Ronnie Stanley has dealt with all season long.
And you just hope it's not going to be it might already be chronic, but you hope it's not going to be potentially season ending in the way that these kind of things can be for Ronnie, unfortunately. But I don't know. Falele's big but can't move people. Tyler's small and can get overpowered. Voorhees seemed like he had a decent day overall, but it's just one thing after another. And you really would like to have Patrick Ricard for a situation like this, if for just no other reason, just to be the guy pushing Mark Andrews in the butt to get him across the line.
I know guard is like one of the less valuable positions on the football field, at least in terms of how teams value it, in terms of how much money those kind of players get and how they're valued in the draft and such. Perhaps you can get by with 1 bad guard. I don't know if you can get by with 2 bad guards, and that's what the Ravens are dealing with right now.
And we should also say, like, this, when John Harbaugh was asked about the plan for the quarterbacks, he said that his plan, and it was interesting that he said my plan as opposed to our plan, because of just some of the stuff that he's said to distinguish himself from Todd Monken, and also the way that he's embraced Zach Orr as being, an inextricable part from the Ravens' success this year, despite them not having a whole lot of it. Like, he said that the plan was to work both Tyler Huntley and Cooper Rush into the game plan, but he didn't feel like there was a moment in that first half that presented itself as a natural insertion point for Tyler Huntley. But you could certainly argue that, I guess, if second down is stuffed, you're there in third down, at least have the run threat that we saw Tyler Huntley present when he finally got into the game in the fourth quarter. But they decided against it because, for the most part, I think Mark Andrews has been very, very effective with these tush pushes, but it just didn't work today.
It's amazing how much better Tyler Huntley looked, how much better the offense looked when Tyler Huntley came into the game. But I don't think that speaks particularly well of Tyler Huntley. I think that says more about the offense that Cooper Rush was operating.
Yeah, and I mean, like, not to brag on myself or anything, but what we saw, the good and the bad from Tyler Huntley, was exactly what I wrote up.
Yeah, it was exactly what you talked about.
He is a guy who will run into sacks.
Yep.
He'll also run away from sacks, but that, the second and third drive that he had, it was just once it felt like there was a possibility of him getting sacked every single time, because yes, he was doing a good job of kind of finding the check down and being able to get out of space, but he was also just not great pocket presence. And that's just something that I don't think he's ever going to have.
It was a classic insert the new the offense is really bogged down, insert the new quarterback at the last minute, and everybody kind of just gets a natural spark and a jolt, and this guy can actually run on the ground.
Just like a balloon losing all of its air. It fizzes around for a little bit and then ultimately just falls flat on the ground.
I mean, he has different strengths and weaknesses from Cooper Rush, but over the whole package is, I don't think, any better than Cooper Rush.
And not to put this all on him, but that, like, his final pass of the game on fourth down, he can't even put it in the field of play.
Yeah, there were multiple times. I think 2 of the fourth downs he could not put the ball in play. And Cooper Rush did the same thing to Zay Flowers, but that's the point, is that you could try to start a QB2 controversy if you want, but you're not going to be any better off with Tyler Huntley. It's just going to be, you're losing in a different way. That's all it's going to be. He's just going to take more sacks and he's going to make some fun stuff happen, but it's the end result is going to be the same. I don't think the game would have really changed if Tyler Huntley had started this game.
No.
In terms of Zay Flowers, we have to talk about the fact that he fumbled twice. Technically, his first 2 fumbles, statistically, of course, we all know his most important and only other fumble before this came in the playoffs, the AFC Championship game in his rookie year against the Kansas City Chiefs at the goal line. He technically is only credited with 1 fumble in this game. The first one was absolutely his fault. He's trying to dance and do stuff over the middle of the field. It felt like a lot of guys were just talking. It's a buzzword that is used too much, but pressing. The Ravens weren't getting much done. It was like every drive was Derrick Henry for 3 yards, then a 2-yard completion to Mark Andrews, and then the Ravens having to face a 3rd and 5. Zay Flowers dancing over the middle, fumbles the ball, coughs it up. Rams pick it up. They go on and score. Ravens get the ball again. They come down the field. And then a handoff on a jet sweep action. Zay Flowers isn't able to corral the ball. He fumbles it again. Ball ends up on the turf. Cooper Rush gets the fumble, but Rams recover, and that's that. Zay Flowers was not in the locker room after the game to speak to the media. Not a great showing for Zay Flowers. It just seemed like his head was not entirely in it in the second half in this one.
Yeah, obviously I didn't get a good look at that end around fumble. The TV broadcast was not all that helpful in determining whether it was just a bad handoff or a bad bad handiwork in securing that. But sure would have been nice to get an explanation post game. And I don't think Cooper Rush talked post game, and neither did Zay Flowers.
Cooper Rush did talk post game.
Okay.
Yep.
Good for him. And yeah, just a kind of underwhelming effort overall. And I think it aligns with one of the themes from DeAndre Hopkins, who has been kind of a voice of wisdom throughout all this, at least in talking to reporters post games, just saying he was asked whether all this was surprising because, of course, of everyone who had a vested interest and a widely covered interest in joining this team because of what we thought that they were all on the precipice of doing. It was a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, and he was asked, whether this slow start has surprised him, and he said, bad football will get you 1-5.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely right. That they haven't been good on offense, they haven't been good on defense, they've been inconsistent on special teams. The coaching has let them down, and now you see, the fans abandoning them as well.
I think the Ravens have not come out clean in any phase of the game. They have not covered themselves in glory, as you like to say, Jonas, in any phase of the game. DeAndre Hopkins has been impressive to me in the way that he has handled himself. And also, he catches pretty much everything thrown his way. He is obviously not the same athlete that he was in his younger days. He doesn't get much separation at all, but he catches everything thrown to him.
Right.
I mean, he's up to, I believe now, that's like 7 catches on the season, but on like 9 targets. I mean, that's pretty darn good conversion rate, I would say. So I give him a lot of credit because he has been at least what the Ravens thought that he would be this season.
9 catches on 13 targets.
On 13 targets, okay, for the season now. So a couple touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins has been nice. The Ravens offense, outside of DeAndre Hopkins, they really did not do a whole lot today. Let's talk about the defense, shall we, Jonas? Because 3 points at halftime. Rams shot themselves in the foot in a lot of instances. Not the cleanest game from Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua misses some time. So that's, one of the most productive receivers, having one of the most productive seasons in NFL history, missing some time. But they certainly performed a lot better. It seemed like they were playing with a little bit of edge. John Harbaugh was asked after the game whether he would consider staff changes during the bye week. He said there's no one move that he thinks would make them better at this point. Do you believe that Zach Orr's job is safe?
Man, I'd said before this game that I felt like nothing short of a Ravens win would save his season, would keep him out of hot water. And I think clearly he still is in hot water. And just because John says something to a crowd of a couple dozen reporters doesn't necessarily mean that his word is bond. Like, he answers to Steve Bisciotti, and Steve Bisciotti is in the owner's box inside of M&T Bank Stadium, staring down at a crowd that had maybe 10,000 people, if that, by the time that the clock hit 000. So if if Steve Bisciotti tells him that something has to be done, if a head has to roll, then maybe a head will roll. Obviously, John's earned a lot of equity with the Ravens Brain Trust, considering he's a part of it. But I don't know. Today might have been enough. And the fact that John was so definitive didn't even open the door for the possibility that this could be something that's in play was a little bit surprising. Like, you usually soft pedal a kind of change like this, whether it's along the depth chart or with an injury or with a coaching staff change. But to hear him be this definitive was surprising. But again, I don't know. It's just, it's tough to wrap your head. It would not surprise me if someone on this staff loses their job just as a sacrificial lamb for what this season has been.
Yeah, I mean,
but it just seems like if you're going to start with anyone, it would be the guy who's ostensibly in charge of everything, not John Harbaugh, the guy right below him on that organizational chart.
Yeah, I mean, they've allowed almost 200 points through their first 6 games of the season. They were on pace to allow the most points ever in NFL history. Coming into this game, they were allowing over 35 points per game. I mean, they were going to break records. And, okay, a nice performance against the LA Rams at home. It's the first time they have really looked good since week 2 against the Browns. So is that going to be enough to save him his job? I mean, I think fans would be obviously, and I'm sure they will tell us so, would be furious if they came out of the bye with no major changes. And if there's going to be one guy who's going to go, if there's going to be one area of the team that has really let them down, it's the defense. It absolutely is. I just don't think that you fire Todd Monken before you fire Zach Orr. You don't fire Chris Horton before you fire Zach Orr. You could fire a low-level assistant, like, one of Zach Orr's assistants, but ultimately the buck stops with him. And if you're content with John Harbaugh at least finishing out the season, you have to make some kind of change. You have to show that you're not satisfied with the results that you've had so far. I'm not saying firing Zach Orr would change the season, but at some point somebody might lose their job because of losing games in the NFL leads to jobs lost.
Yeah, it's obviously we are not rooting for him to lose his job. I enjoy talking to Zach. I think that when John Jenkins stands up post-game and says that he's behind Zach Orr 110%, you do believe him, because the passion and the exuberance that Zach brings to press conferences is also apparent in meeting rooms. I think he came off spectacularly well just as a public figure or semi-public figure during the Hard Knocks, with him being front and center, not a guy like Dean Pease, who I think a lot of people incorrectly ascribed a lot of their turnaround and their success to last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just could be a situation where Zach is saved by the good timing of the best defensive showing of this team. Far more impressive than what they did in week 2 against that Joe Flacco Browns offense. And again, like, you can be optimistic and say that this team did all this with Kyle Hamilton probably not 100%, Marlon Humphrey probably not 100%, Alohi Gilman still learning this defense. But then you also consider what's ahead and just the offenses that are probably heating up, that are going to be facing this Ravens defense that is now going to be without Tavius Robinson probably for at least a month or two as he comes back from a broken foot. They're going to need to find some help there. They're going to need to, figure out just how long Cheeto Woozy is out. Obviously, I think if it were serious, he probably would have placed him on IR, but there's just still a defined lack of playmakers, certainly up front. Roquan Smith coming back isn't going to change this pass rush.
No.
Travis Jones having a week to rest up that knee isn't going to change this pass rush. And to see Odafe Oweh, get a sack and 2 QB hits and in his first game with the Chargers and helping them win, it's definitely, if Eric DeCosta would have the opportunity to pull a mulligan, to do a mulligan and pull back that trade, considering where Tavius is and just the state of this pass rush group in general, I think he probably would.
I mean, Odafe, that sack, if you haven't seen it already on Twitter, it happened sometime during the Ravens' first half. It takes just less than, 8 minutes for... Yep. Odafe Oweh has no sacks in his first 5 games with the Ravens this season, and then immediately gets a sack with the Chargers. It was a little bit lucky. Tua Tagovailoa was kind of scrambling around, and Odafe was just kind of in the right place at the right time and brought him down. But if Steve Bisciotti's in the owner's box watching the Ravens game, do you think somebody nudged him and showed him the highlight of Odafe Oweh getting a sack on the other coast? Or down in Miami? Where did they play?
I think in Miami.
In Miami, perhaps? Yeah, they played in Miami. So, I don't know. I think that it's not a good look. But I also do think, I mean, for as much as we can watch safeties play live in front of us and without having watched the tape, Alohi Gilman looked good today. For somebody who just got traded here on Tuesday, was just learning the defense,
yep.
And, was thrown in there, played most, if not all, of the defensive snaps. I thought he looked solid. And he definitely does unlock the other side of Kyle Hamilton, the chess piece side of Kyle Hamilton that can be used in all these different ways. Kyle Hamilton was around the ball multiple times today. He was helping in run fits. He was at times getting into the backfield. I thought that he did a great job, in part because he was unlocked by the fact that Alohi Gilman is there. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the Ravens are going to be in desperate need of pass rush help, even more so after they lose Tavius Robinson.
I know. The price, yesterday's price is not today's price.
They robbed Peter to pay Paul. Like, you took away a pass rusher in order to get a safety. Maybe overall that has like a slight net gain, but you still do have now, you just created a hole to fill another hole.
Yeah, and I do wonder if one of the changes the Ravens could consider coming out of the bye is perhaps putting Gilman in as the starter in base personnel for the Ravens defense over Malachi Starks. It was tough to tell based off the replay, and maybe Tom Brady had a better vantage point or better breakdown than what we were able to kind of glean. But on that pass, on that play action, bootleg or whatever it was that led to the Rams passing touchdown, it looked like Malachi was 5 yards from where he needed to be on that one. And
yep. Kyle
Hamilton was crashing down. You trust that Kyle Hamilton is probably doing what he's supposed to, and Malachi maybe had eyes where they weren't supposed to be, which is another case where he is at least involved tangentially in a bad look for the Ravens defense in the low red zone. He talked on Wednesday about how he's not trusting himself and he's not playing fast enough, but that was a case where maybe he just was thrown off by whatever the Rams were doing. And at least the Ravens have options there. Like, even if he is demoted, quote unquote, from that starting defense, he still would see the field a lot because of how often the Ravens play in nickel and dime and everything. But it might be good for him, along with some of these other guys, just to have a little bit of their load lightened.
Yeah. All right. We are going to talk about the special teams and look ahead to an important bye week. I guess you could say as important as bye weeks come on the other side of another quick break.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time.
All right, Jonas, let's talk special teams. Tyler Loop looked good today. Hit all his kicks into the landing zone, I believe. Don't think he missed on any of those. Also made his one field goal attempt. Good job for Tyler Loop. His fellow sixth-round rookie was bailed out in the best of ways. LeJontay Wester is taking a punt return in this game and fumbles it, coughs it up. Rams recover. All undone by some kind of penalty. I can't even remember what the penalty was. Is it
There are so many
illegal man downfield, I believe, was the penalty on the Rams special teams.
Yeah, there are a lot of penalties.
Totally erases the fumble. He is totally bailed out. And he ends up having a great return on the re-kick. LeJontay Wester. Maybe a Who's Got It Better Than award winner this week.
Yeah, an ineligible downfield kick.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good preview of the LeJontay Wester experience in general. I know that he has been, for the most part, pretty reliable when it comes to his ball security, but you get the feeling that he maybe takes it a little bit too hard on himself, and that affects how he plays. But listen, I mean, like he moves so easily and naturally out there that even the play on which he fumbled, he was able to find a lane through that first line of defense and get to that second level. So excited to see what he can do if this Ravens defense actually, does a good job and forces punts. I think the first half punt that they forced today was like the first half punt that they forced since week 2 or week 3.
Yeesh.
So it's been a while since LeJontay Wester has gotten a whole lot of opportunities. He was also out there for a couple of pass snaps, but obviously I don't think he got a single target. So good to see him be able to have an opportunity to atone pretty quickly. But of course, that drive, as so many of these Ravens drives, ended up with absolutely nothing.
Yeah. All right, let's talk injuries as well. Ronnie Stanley, as you mentioned, left this game with his ankle injury that he's been dealing with all year. Tavius Robinson broke his foot. Brent Urban left this game. He was in concussion protocol. He cleared it, correct?
Yep.
Came back into this game? Okay. So Ravens stand to get healthier on the other side of the bye. As John Harbaugh said, he is hoping to get Lamar Jackson back after the bye. Earlier this week, last Monday, he said that he was hoping to get Patrick Ricard back as well after the bye. So
and also short-term IR for Broderick Washington. Not that,
yes,
at this point, I don't know if he's any more meaningful to this Ravens run defense than someone like CJ Okoye or Brent Urban.
Yeah, Okoye added to the 53-man roster before this game as well. So the Ravens, maybe you get Roquan Smith back at some point. You have Marlon Humphrey played and completed this game. You have Kyle Hamilton played and completed this game. So you could get healthier in a couple other areas. That will help. But Jonas, as we look at this team right now that is 1-5, the Steelers won today, which means the Ravens are 3.5 games back in the AFC North. They obviously haven't met yet so far this season. Only one team since 2020 has started 1-5 and made the playoffs. That was the team that we keep on referencing here, which is the Commanders, that finished with a sub 500 record and still made the playoffs. I guess you could say that after this week, it's a positive trend upwards for defense. Just one game, but trending the wrong way on offense for sure.
Yeah.
Could change whether you get Lamar Jackson back, but
I mean, it's just to kind of put things in the proper context. The Ravens now are 1-5, which means that if the Ravens run the table, the best that they can do is match last year's record.
Yeah.
Because last year they went 12-5, which was good enough to win the AFC North, which we all thought that they would do this year, but not even get home field advantage. So pretty much all of their get into the playoffs and get a high seed goals are cooked at this point. I think the best that they could hope for probably is to get the 4 seed, maybe the 3 seed. But of course, that starts with them winning and the Steelers losing, which neither team is really cooperating with so far.
Yeah, I mean, they come out after the bye and they go at home against the Bears, on the road against Miami, on the road against Minnesota, on the road against Cleveland, and at home against the Jets, and at home against the Bengals before they play Pittsburgh. So you're looking at, as we've said before, 6-game stretch where you at least have to win 5 of those 6 and probably 6 of 6 in order to make the playoffs. What is this team going to look like on the other side of the bye, Jonas? Is Zach Orr still going to be the defensive coordinator? Or are Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees going to be your 2 guards? Is Malachi Starks going to be benched? What are we going to see?
I don't know if anything that drastic. I think certainly based off the very unscientific, like watching we did today, you could say that Falele is probably closer to the bench than Voorhees. But again, over the long haul of the season, he's probably been better than Voorhees. So who knows? We'll have to go back and look at the film of that. We still don't know really how close Emory Jones is to the field because, yes, he's a full participant in practice, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot because, again, he hasn't really had a full 2 or 3 weeks of practice since that LSU season ended last year.
Yeah. He's a third-round rookie, and we
don't even know what position
they
like him the most at.
He's played tackle for the most part, and he's still listed as a tackle.
Yeah.
So would the Ravens really feel good about inserting him at guard?
As we said, it's an unsatisfying game because they played well enough to win. They didn't win, and now you are laying the groundwork for all the changes that the fans have clamored for. None of them actually coming to fruition. No offensive line changes. No coaches' heads put on a pike. Nothing really substantial. No gauntlets thrown by the coaching staff beyond just them saying that, yes, their tush pushes were a failure. It's just a bummer. And obviously certain voices that you would have liked to have spoken up after a game like this were not present or at least not seen in the locker room. So it just feels like even on a day like today where the defense suddenly ceased to look rudderless, it just feels like we're kind of floating out in the abyss with this team and this season because it could absolutely continue to careen, and we're starting to pivot our focus to what exactly are the Ravens going to do in the top 10 of the draft, or with this schedule being very, very weak over the next couple of weeks, especially with the kind of defenses that they're facing, they could just catch fire and start blitzing teams by double digits like they did so often last year.
It's like the Orioles conversation all over again. It's like I'm on the Banner Baseball Show, Jonas. It's exactly this like team that. Starts out.
I was telling you that before the show started.
You were. The team starts out so slow. They look awful. They get a lot of injuries, and they fire Brandon Hyde at some point. Maybe that's the equivalent of the Ravens potentially firing Zach Orr this week. And you still, because the talent is there, you still believe it's possible for a turnaround. This talent is still all there. And I think you have to feel a little bit good about the fire that you saw on the defensive side. I mean, Marlon Humphrey was acting like Cam Scadaboo today, butting heads with some of his teammates, trying to light some kind of fire under these guys. I mean, Kyle Hamilton looked close to the old Kyle Hamilton out there. Alohi Gilman looks like he's going to actually be a piece in this defense. But at the same time, you have to be so incredibly good over the next 10 weeks to be even have a shot at this thing that it feels like it's probably too little too late, but we'll be along for the ride on the roller coaster.
Just no margin for error.
No. We have so much more coverage on thebanner.com where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months.
Shout out to the Banner.
Columnist Kyle Goon is writing about how this season is not worth saving for Eric DaCosta.
I believe he did a similar post-mortem or mid-mortem for the Orioles, right?
Yeah.
And he ended up being right.
Strikingly similar about how, EDC could go out and acquire some more pieces like he did with Alohi Gilman, but probably not worth it at this point. Gian Han is writing about the tush push, the failed tush push is tush push I don't know what the tush push is.
Yep.
Sure. Also, we did not
it's
get
not
to
like attorneys general.
We also did not, or Johns Hopkins.
That's true.
We did not get to see the Cooper Rush tush push, which I said before the season, Jonas, if the Ravens did the Cooper Rush tush push, I would want to call it the Rush push.
Rush push. Yeah.
Didn't get to see it.
I was wondering in my head if there was like
Mandrews.
No. With your proximity to Philly, is there a fun word for when the tush pushed gets denied? Like, is it the best thing that I could come up with? And please do not hold this against me, dear listeners. Was like the behind rewind where it goes backwards.
Yeah.
Is that any good?
The glute
moot. Yeah. Like when a point is mooted, it means it's taken out of consideration.
Yeah. Not bad. We'll keep working on it.
The butt rut.
The butt rut. I like that. Todd Monken said this week that the offense was in a rut. It's the butt rut, Jonas.
Let's put it on a t-shirt before anyone can steal our idea.
Anyway, Gianna Hahn's working on that story. I'm going to go implore her to use the butt rut in that story. And Jonas, what is your story after this game going to be about?
Just what we can expect over this next week. Obviously, the Ravens are practicing Tuesday and Wednesday. I believe the expectation is that we will talk to the Ravens assistants on Wednesday. Obviously, a lot of questions for some of these guys whose unit is perhaps not living up to expectations, although I guess you could say that probably for most of these guys. But yeah, it's going to be a much more interesting bye week than I can remember. Probably the most interesting bye week since, I think, the week the Ravens pivoted from Joe Flacco to Lamar in 2018. I believe that happened over a bye, and of course that changed the season. We'll see if there's a similar pivot with this season.
Yeah. Good thing you're not going to France this week, Jonas.
No.
You're not going on vacation.
Gianna is going to vacation.
She is going on vacation. Oh, boy. Can't wait for her to be filing from the beach. And Childs Walker, of course, will have his usual 5 things after this game as well. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends about the Banner Ravens podcast. We will have another episode at some point, I think, later on this week. Could be going live with some emergency podcast if there were to be some breaking news about any kind of staff or personnel changes. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Jonas Shaffer,